Hey folks, Healer here, and welcome to my review and first impressions of the new premium Tier 8 U.S. Navy heavy cruiser, the USS Anchorage. Quite a few of you have now picked up this ship. The last set of directives were released, I think, beginning of last week, or maybe it was the week before. I don't quite remember. In any case, on my own personal account, I'm actually a little behind. I'm still working through the fifth set of directives. I bought the ship outright on my press account, which is what you're watching right now. I wanted to get some firsthand experience with the ship, be able to prepare a review and offer my thoughts and opinions on the ship and share that with the community. Now, as I do with my reviews, I'll have some gameplay. I'll talk about the characteristics and the play style of the ship. For this particular gameplay, I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the match itself, mainly for visual interest, although there's some important points during the game that hopefully will become apparent while you're watching it. And then I'll go to port and I'll talk through the ship specifications and parameters. I'll talk about my build and some options that you might want to think about. And then I'll have some final thoughts. As always, I'll leave an index for the video in the description below. So if you want to jump around to any particular sections, feel free to do so. So the Anchorage, she is a 12-gun U.S. Navy heavy cruiser at Tier 8. She's based on the Buffalo hull. She obviously is not going to have the same capabilities as the Buffalo at Tier, being at Tier 8. She does not have the repair party consumable. She does not have access to the 6 upgrade slot, but she does have some unique characteristics for U.S. Navy heavy cruisers. Specifically, she has smoke and she has torpedoes. In fact, they're very good torpedoes. So there's definitely some elements to her that can make her play style quite unique. She is also quite different to her peers at this tier. She does not carry radar. So unlike the Baltimore and Buffalo, she doesn't have radar. She also has some, well, I'll just characterize as deficits compared to both the Baltimore and Buffalo that I can't quite explain. But let me put up a slide here so that you can see what I'm looking at. So when I compared, well, actually, before I put up the slide, let me offer an initial sort of preamble. So when the ship was first announced, I was actually quite enthusiastic about it because I thought like a 12-gun U.S. Navy heavy cruiser could be really strong at Tier 8. Yes, I would accept that she would not have the same depth or level of performance or durability as the Buffalo because she was one tier lower. But the way that she got implemented after I crunched the numbers and played the games, I realized that she seems, well, she might be weaker in some ways than one might expect for what she should have, I think. And again, I'm just expressing my opinion here. So let me put the slide up. So the areas where I think she's equivalent to what she should be is her speed, her rudder, and her concealment are all identical. These are base numbers. Actually, the concealment is the best concealment. But the other numbers are going to be base numbers. She's consistent with the Buffalo, which makes sense. So she has a 33 knot top speed, which is quite good. Her rudder is okay at 11.2, although it really kind of demands the steering gears upgrade in slot 4. And the concealment at 10.7 kilometers, which is the best concealment she can get, is also quite playable. Where she feels very underwhelming or quite underwhelming is first with her hit point pool, which is less than the Baltimore. So it's not a lot less. It's only like 1.5% or not quite that. But the fact that she doesn't even have the hit point pool of a stock Buffalo, which is I think 42,500, I'm not sure I understand the rationale there. I could understand the argument to say, let's give the Anchorage sort of a stock hull her in terms of her base hit point pool. That would kind of make sense, but Wargaming didn't even give her that level of hit point pool. Her range is consistent with the Baltimore at 15.8 kilometers, but the two areas where I really see big deficits or big differences really are in her DPM and her AA. So the two numbers that you're seeing in the DPM for each column is the first one is the DPM in thousands of hit points per minute for HE, and then the second number is for AP. So in both HE and AP performance, she is weaker than the Baltimore. So she has 12 guns instead of 9, but because she has a 15.5-second reload and she has weaker or lower alpha AP shells, the combination of those things gives her a lower DPM than the Baltimore. And then the other aspect, like I said, was her AA. She has the same range as the Baltimore and Buffalo at 5.8 kilometers, but the continuous AA damage number is half that of the Baltimore. And that, to me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So on the AA front, which is traditionally a place where the U.S. Navy ships are supposed to be sort of superior, or that's kind of their gimmick and has been for a long time in the game, really doesn't hold up to U.S. Navy standards, in my opinion. I can accept that she maybe should have closer to the stock AA of the Buffalo, but she doesn't even have that. So I'm a little bit confused as to why Wargaming gave her such a weak AA number, and I am a little disappointed that her DPM is not stronger than it is. Interestingly, during her development, Wargaming changed her AP shell characteristics. She originally received the upper tier U.S. Navy heavy cruiser AP shells that the Baltimore, Buffalo, and Des Moines get, which have a 5,000 APL, or yeah, the AP is a 5,000 alpha. They changed that during testing to give her alpha equivalent to the New Orleans. Now, don't get me wrong; the New Orleans is a great ship as an AP, in terms of firing AP. But the alpha there is 4,600 per shell, and even if she had retained her 5,000 hit point per shell alpha on that she originally had, she would still have lower AP alpha, or DPM, I should say, than the Baltimore. So DPM, AP, I'm sorry, DPM, AA, and hit points to me just kind of doesn't entirely add up. Now, maybe Wargaming knows something about how smoke ships perform relative to other ships. But in my opinion, the smoke is a little bit of a gimmick. To me, smoke in a lot of ways can be a liability because it advertises your ship's presence, especially for destroyers. It invites radar and it invites torpedoes, etc., etc. And I prefer to rely on positioning and situational awareness and angling and so on to leverage a cruiser's capabilities and its DPM. So I personally would be fine giving up smoke on the Anchorage, and be able to take other capabilities to make my ship more versatile. That gets me actually to the other aspect of the ship that to me I'm a little disappointed in, which is the consumable layout. So normally when ships, well, in this case, the Anchorage has two consumable slots in addition to the damage control that all ships have access to. So normally when we see ships with smoke and so on, they and hydro, etc., they tend to have two trade-offs. They can either take hydro or defensive fire in one slot, and then the other slot they can take smoke or radar or plane or some other characteristic, right? And we see this with the Royal Navy, light cruisers, etc., etc. But in the Anchorage's case, she has to take smoke. She can't trade that for anything else. And her trade off is only in the other consumable slot, which allows her to take either hydro or a fighter or a spotter plane. And to me, that just seems like it's certainly a very untraditional consumable structure. But to me, for my play style and what I'm comfortable with and what I know, it's a very inflexible consumable structure. And again, I'm just voicing my opinion. You guys may have totally different perspectives on the ship than I have. In fact, I really would love to hear from the community in the comments below about what your thoughts are about the ship and your experiences with her, because maybe you are having a very different experience than I am, or impression at least than I am. So there are some characteristics here with the Anchorage that I'm really kind of perplexed about. Maybe I just need to play her more so that I can understand that she has playstyle elements that she's better able to leverage than the Baltimore or Buffalo can, and therefore she has more damage potential, realistic damage potential. I'm just not sure. I found that in most games, wasn't leveraging the smoke very often. It was only under certain opportunistic situations, or if I had to get into concealment immediately type of situations. I tend to prefer, like I said, to rely on positioning and terrain and so on to leverage my cruiser's capabilities. And that's what I'm comfortable with, and that's what I understand. Now, as I mentioned earlier, one other aspect of her that's unique is she has torpedoes. And this to me is indeed a very bright spot for this ship. The torpedoes are very good. These are the Fletcher torpedoes. They have 10.5 kilometer range. They have very good alpha at 19,033. They are quite quick at 66 knots. The reload is decent at 85 seconds. So there's a lot of aspects of these torpedoes that are very good. Now, with the best concealment of 9.7 kilometers and a torpedo range of 10.5 kilometers, I'm sorry, did I say 9.7? 10.7 concealment and 9.5 kilometer range on the torpedoes. She can stealth torpedo by using the fadeaway torpedo method. The torpedoes do give her some significant versatility. Especially if she's going to be a close support cruiser, she can use her torpedoes as sort of area denial and help back up her team that way. So I need to play her more, I think, to maybe appreciate some of her qualities better. But right now, after playing four or five games, I'm pretty strongly of a mixed opinion about this ship. And again, like I said, maybe I just haven't played her enough, or maybe I'm not leveraging her quite right. And there are lots of other people out there that have just totally fallen in love with this ship, and they figured out how to leverage her strengths better than I have. So again, like I said, please let me know your thoughts in the comments. So that is going to kind of wrap it up in terms of the initial characteristics. Let me go over to port and we'll talk about our specifications and my build, and I'll offer some final thoughts. Okay, here we are in the Hawaii port with the Anchorage, starting with her armor layout. She is a upper tier U.S. Navy heavy cruiser, which means she gets the 27 millimeter bow and stern. She gets 27 millimeter upper belt as well as deck. That means she can bounce, when well angled, the 380 and 381 millimeter AP shells fired by a lot of middle and upper tier battleships in the game. Her citadel is pretty high in the water. It's pretty big too. I definitely got balanced pretty hard. Obviously, in the first match, the one that I showed at the beginning of the video, I got smacked with at least one or two citadels from the Amagi. I was making a turn out when I was initially undetected, and then the plane spotted me, and so the Amagi got a good smack on me, and I definitely felt that in some of the other games. So she still is a cruiser, even though she can bow tank some of the AP shells fired by some of the battleships. So just something to keep in mind. Getting to her survivability, I talked about this during the game. She has fewer hit points. I think it's 600 fewer hit points than the Baltimore. So just something to keep in mind. And again, this may be a reflection, Wargaming's reflection of, because she carries smoke, she has more opportunities to fire with full concealment, and therefore that gives her some indirect survivability that the Buffalo and the Baltimore don't get. But this is, again, it's not a bad hit point pool number for a tier 8 cruiser. It's pretty significant, but it's just something to keep in mind that she's not going to be quite as durable or have the same endurance level when detected as her peers, or at least the U.S. Navy heavy cruiser peers. Guns I talked about with at some significant length, so I won't sort of extend that discussion too much further. 15.5 second reload. The dispersion is pretty good. Her range is 15.8 kilometers. And because I'm sorry, 15.6 kilometers. And because she does not get access to the, um, because she does not get access to the 6 upgrade slot, she cannot take the range upgrade, which I do take on the Buffalo, to give the ship a lot more flexibility. So she has to play a lot like the Baltimore in terms of her positioning. She's going to tend to be a little closer to opponents, especially when she's upper tiered. She's going to be outranged by certainly all the battleships and most of the cruisers she's going to be up against. So the range is going to be a significant factor in terms of her positioning. Yeah, she carries the 127 millimeter secondary guns. But again, I'll talk about her AA here in a moment, but the AA is really underwhelming. Torpedoes, I talked about this again during the gameplay. These are very good torpedoes. These are from the Fletcher, 85-second reload, 66 knots. They go 10.5 kilometers. They have a decent concealment at 1.4 kilometers. So these are very usable torpedoes and gives her a lot of versatility. AA, again, I talked about at some significant length during the gameplay. It is really underwhelming. Again, I tend to ignore this number for the overall AA defense because it sort of dilutes the overall effect. The main things I look for are the firing range at 5.8 kilometers is decent, but the continuous damage is really underwhelming. The long range is terrible at only 88 hit points per second. And she has no mid-range AA, so she's not using any. She doesn't have any of the 40 millimeter Bofors. So this is a really underwhelming AA package in the ship. So that's something to keep in mind, that you obviously can provide some overlapping AA support with your allies, but you're definitely not going to shoot down the planes the same way that the Baltimore probably could. Maneuverability, 33 knot base speed. That is going to go up to almost 35 knots with a speed signal. Turning circle at 800 meters is okay. Rudder shift here reflects the steering gears modification 2 upgrade in slot 4. Base rudder shift, I think I said, was 11.2 seconds, which is a little sluggish and for a U.S. Navy cruiser. And I felt that it was more important to have a better rudder shift than getting the propulsion mod, which I prefer to take when I can. So that was just kind of my experience. And then concealment, again, is identical to the Buffalo with a best concealment of 10.7 kilometers. All right, getting to my upgrades. Main armaments modification 1 in slot 1. I currently have the engine room protection in slot 2. This would be a good place to mount the hydro upgrade. If you wanted to extend the action time of the hydro, again, she does not get the defensive fire consumable as an option, so that wouldn't be an option here. For slot 3, I took the main battery modification 2 to give her slightly quicker turrets. I want to be able to keep my turrets on target. And the key metric for me is whether the turrets will keep up with me in a full turn. And if I don't take this, they start falling behind, or at least that's what I found. If you didn't take this, you could take the aiming systems. That would be the other logical choice. I'm not sure that there's a pressing need to take the smoke generator upgrade because she only gets a maximum of 3 charges. But again, depending upon how you play, you may prefer to take the smoke generator upgrade in slot 3. Slot 4, I mentioned here already a couple of times. I took the steering gears modification upgrade to improve the rudder shift. I do prefer taking propulsion mod, especially for smoke-based ships, to be able to escape their smoke more quickly, especially if torpedoes are coming or whatever. But I just found that the rudder was too unresponsive for or the base rudder, I should say, for what I wanted. So this is something that's going to come down to each individual player's comfort level. And then last but not least, in slot 5, take the concealment system upgrade to improve your concealment for this ship. All right. Okay, getting to my command. Oh, actually, coming back to consumables. I mentioned this again during the gameplay. You have smoke, but you can't change this out for anything. You have hydro. You can swap that out for a fighter or a spotter aircraft. I would love, I would much prefer to be able to have a choice of taking hydro in one slot and then give up smoke to get the spotting aircraft. That would be, for me, a preferred option. I would be very willing to give up the smoke, but right now, per her current consumable loadout, smoke is fixed. All right, getting over to my commander skills. This is kind of my standard or mostly standard close support cruiser build or very similar. So the first four I would take are Priority Target, Adrenaline Rush, Superintendent, and Concealment. And then after that, it comes down to what you prefer. I like having radio location on my close support cruisers. In fact, I'm starting to look at taking this more even on some of my long range cruisers as well, like for the Germans and the Russians and French. But certainly for the U.S. cruisers, the Royal Navy, even the Italian cruisers, having radio location is very effective in being able to provide close support. I do pick up Expert Marksman, and this compounds the benefit of the main battery modification 2 upgrade in slot 3 to give me quicker turrets. And then Expert Loader to me is almost indispensable, especially in heavy cruisers. The Des Moines is less pressing because her reload is already very quick at 5.5 seconds. But pretty much anything 8 seconds or longer, I like having Expert Loader. And since the Anchorage has a 15.5 second reload, using Expert Loader to quickly switch to another ammo type, especially to switch to AP to catch that broadside target at short notice, is very, very valuable. And then lastly, I like Jack of all trades to get my consumables to come up faster. I think that's a pretty useful skill across the board. All right, going over to signals. Let me mount what I would probably take. So the recommended signals from Wargaming are actually what I would take. So November Foxtrot to reduce the cooldown time on your consumables, Sierra Mike to improve your speed, take India X-Ray and Victor Lima to improve the fire chance on your main batteries. Victor Lima, or in your main battery, Victor Lima also improves the chance of causing floods if you do hit torpedoes, so that has that benefit. And then Juliet Charlie to eliminate the chance of being detonated. You could take the Juliet Whiskey Uni-1 signal to improve the chance of floods on opponents even further, but I think I've only gotten 1 or maybe 2 torpedo hits in the 5 games that I've played with her so far. So if you've got a lot of these, sure, mount it. If you are relatively low, I would conserve these for your torpedo destroyers. I don't think it's quite as useful on the Anchorage. All right, so let me go back to port here and offer some final thoughts. So the Anchorage, well, I should also mention that the Anchorage looks awesome. I love this camouflage. I think it looks really good. The art department did a really good job here to really give the leverage the artwork and style of the indigenous peoples of the Northwest of North America. So I think it looks terrific. But as a ship package overall, it's a very interesting combination. Like I said, I think she definitely has some good strengths, like with the smoke and the torpedoes. I am, a little underwhelmed by her gunfire capabilities, and especially her AA. I don't know if at some point in the future maybe Wargaming buffs those a little, but this ship is definitely capable. I had out of the 5 games I played with her, I think I had 2 that were over 100,000 in damage. So cruiser mains or people that understand how to play the U.S. Navy heavy cruisers well should be comfortable with this ship. The part that they're going to be frustrated with, like I said, is the relatively long reload on the guns and the weak AA for a U.S. Navy heavy cruiser, especially upper tier. But otherwise, this could be a ship that I think for a lot of players could be very enjoyable, and for others might be a little less so. So it kind of depends upon your play style. So that's going to be kind of my thoughts and opinions about this ship. Like I said, feel free to leave your thoughts on the ship in the comments below, especially if you've picked her up and you've had a chance to play her for a while. What do you think of her? What do you think has worked well for you? Am I overstating what I perceive as some of her deficits, or am I, is my my characterization, I should say, fair for this ship? So just let me know your thoughts. And as always, we hope to see you out there on the virtual seas, and we wish you happy sailing.